There has to be some common sense.
Yes, sir. They have the car stopped at 10th and Ranch, Michael Kohberger.
We still don't know who pulled the trigger.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, retired NYPD Sergeant Bill Cannon. And with me tonight, we have two excellent co-hosts. And straight out of the North Shore of Long Island, I won't tell you where because it's a secret, we have retired attorney, active mom, 5 kids, and actress, Melanie Little. Good evening, Melanie. How are you?
I'm great, Bill. How are you tonight?
Good. Happy Good Friday. Happy Easter.
Good Friday to you too.
Well, thank you. And we also have with us tonight retired NYPD Sergeant, attorney, and professor Mike Geary. How you doing tonight, Mike?
Billy, doing well. Good to see you, Melanie. Thank you for having me.
Mike.
Well, it's always great when I can call you guys at the last minute, and you have no lives, so you're always willing. You're always willing to come on the show. I say that with tongue in cheek. I don't mean that. But it's so great. I can call you at the last minute and you say, of course I'll come on. And that's a great thing. And I want to thank both of you for doing that. Now, tonight's topic is and it's not anything really new, but when you think about it, in the Moscow quadruple homicide of Ethan Chapin, Zaina Konodal, Madison Mogan, and Kaylee Gonsalves, and we always like to say their names because we don't want to refer to this as the Idaho Quad or the Idaho 4 or the Brian Kohberger case. We never want to forget them. Now, the university, based on the fact that the owner of 1125 King Road, which is the location where the murders occurred, the owner of that donated the house to the university so that they would expectantly knock it down. Now, it's become a bone of contention because does the prosecution really want this house knocked down before the expected trial? And we don't know if there will be a trial, but most of it, we expect there to be a trial. Does the defense want the house knocked down? And these are some of the topics that we want to talk about because I would think, and of course, I'm not an attorney, or both you guys are, that a jury would probably want to do a walkthrough of this house. Very difficult to do a walkthrough of a house that's not there anymore, but especially in a horrific crime like this, where 4 young people, 2 ages 20 and 2 ages 21, students at the University of Idaho, were slaughtered in their beds. So how do you knock the house down when this knocking the house down could potentially give the defense some doubt, give some juror a reason to have doubt in the case? Melanie, your thoughts?
Well, there's a couple of issues here. There is an order in place right now as we speak. So I'm a little confused about I think Ashley Banfield did a show on this yesterday that we watched. But there is a motion to preserve the crime scene and the evidence that is in effect that the judge signed on December 30th. And it says that this order is going to stay in place until further order of the court. So I don't know that they're going to be able to knock it down. My gut is that the prosecution or the defense can object to it. They can certainly object to it, ask the court for an injunction of some sort or a temporary restraining order to prevent the destruction of the house, the demolition, and then make their arguments. And then a judge absolutely could step in and say, no, we have to preserve this house. As a juror, if I was a juror, I would want to walk through that house. I think there are a lot of questions about the layout of that house, about who could hear what from where. It's a very wonky layout. Some people are saying they did a 3D imaging of the house, and yeah, that's great, but there's nothing like the real thing. And we've seen in the Murdoch case, the jury went to the scene The OJ case, I mean, there have been the Parkland shooting, I think they went to the scene, and there have been a lot of cases where juries have gone to the scene. It's not that common. But in a case like this, I think whichever side thinks it's going to benefit them the most is going to object.
100%. Mike, same question.
Yeah, the judge has got the order in place, and I agree with Melanie. I doubt there's really any way that the judge would lift that stay and allow the place to be torn down. It just gives the defense attorney a great, a great issue to pound the table on, and saying, there must have been something there that they didn't want the jury to see, because that would help, Brian Kohberger. It would be a terrible thing to do. And as a jury, as a member of the jury, because you have such a compact, time frame, we're talking like, say, 4:10 to 4:28 or something like that. It's only like 15, 18 minutes. I want to see, as a juror, I want to go in there and see the layout. I want to kind of go walk through in my mind, along with people there, where he came in, the prosecution theorizes he struck first, struck second. As Melanie said, what you could hear, from different levels. It is a strange layout. And I want to see firsthand that, rather than just talk about it. Pictures are great, but they're two-dimensional. I want to see it in real life with me standing there. I would be disservice to Mr. Kohberger. It would be disservice to the people of Idaho and for the victims to have that place torn down.
100%. When I was in homicide and we would have a murder at an inside location, I would always want to walk through the crime scene. And that's really homicide investigation 101, is for the investigators to walk through the crime scene, to see what they see in the crime scene, to see if they can read what happened in this case. And in the same way, I think it's important that your jurors be given the opportunity to walk through the crime scene, because they'll see and feel more than you could ever do by looking at pictures. And even though pictures these days, like Melanie, you mentioned 3D versions, even 3D videos, laser reenactments of some of the evidence, it's still not the same thing as going to the scene in person. Let me play a little bit of this video here.
Of Moscow and this home on King Road are forever tied to the murders that took place inside. And that's why, as the community focuses on healing, the university has decided to demolish it.
Both the owner and the university agreed, and then consulted, of course, with the families, and agreed that demolition of the house would indeed happen, and happen as quickly as possible.
This home that's now been seen by people across the country will soon be gone.
For myriad reasons that all move toward moving the university forward, moving our community forward, and most importantly, remembering and honoring the 4 students that died.
Which has been hard to do with people constantly taking photos and videos.
There have been a lot of Instagrammers and other social media people hanging around the scene, and that's really not helpful for us to be able to move forward.
We spoke with one student that lives next door to the home on King Road. He says he doesn't want us to use his full name, but he told us he believes demolishing the home is the right decision.
I think that it's important that the university does things like that for this town and this campus, because people definitely need to heal from it.
He says the murders that happened right next door changed how he views his town's safety.
Before it happened, I kind of threw caution in the wind all the time. We left our doors unlocked. Just never really felt like I had to watch my back in Moscow, Idaho. We installed a new security system, and I'm taking care of that every day.
The university will also be installing a healing garden and memorial for Ethan, Xana, Kaylee, and Maddie, and other vandals whose lives were cut short.
We hope that this place would be that place where students feel comfortable sitting or standing, reflecting, thinking about maybe someone that they've lost, to have that place where they can go and feel that the Vandal spirit and the Vandal family love.
And this is all still in the early stages, but once it's complete, students will have a space on campus to heal and move forward from this tragedy. Reporting in Moscow, Bronte Sorotsky.
Your thoughts?
Well, I'm all for healing, and I'm all for moving forward, but I'm also for justice. And I think that if keeping that house there is going to provide justice in the end, whether it's a conviction, whether it's let's say he didn't do it, whether it exonerates him, whatever. I think that it's an important piece of evidence. And are they talking about building a memorial on the exact site where the house was? Because I don't.
No, they're not. They're talking about building a memorial on campus.
There are ways of preserving that house. They could tent it the way they do when exterminators come, and you wouldn't have to look at it, but it would still be there.
Schmitty, good question. Sergeant Bill, who would be the person to talk to the university about perhaps leaving the house until after the trial? Well, right now, because of the gag order, all of the communication between the families, between the attorneys, between the prosecution is all done through attorneys. Not the families not talking directly to the university. They're talking. Their attorney is talking to the university's attorney, and the families, not all of them, feel the same way. A couple of the families feel that the house should not be knocked down till after the trial. If perhaps we can't 100% say there will be a trial, but my feelings are, and I think well, I'm not going to speak. Actually, I'm not going to speak for Mike and Melanie. Mike, what are your feelings? Will there be a trial in this case?
Billy, I think there is going to be a trial. I think Mr. Kohberger may somehow believe that he is the smartest guy who's on 2 feet. I'm sure his attorney is going to try to talk him out of it. In the end, it'll be his decision. But she already has a death penalty case experience. She knows how these things go, and I think she will hopefully talk some sense into him and say, "Look, there's so much information here. If I'm not fighting for your innocence here, I'm fighting for your life. And if we stand any chance of avoiding the death penalty, take a plea." But he may be of the ilk that he just feels that he is smarter. He's the smartest person in the room, and I hope he doesn't feel that way, but I think he does.
One of the things that I just wanted to point out is that the university and the town, the community, they have all suffered a great deal from these murders, and no one has suffered more than the families of these young students: Ethan Chapin, Zaina Knodel, Madison Mogan, and Kaylee Gonsalves. Their families, there's no one that could even imagine what these families are going through. And in the case of Ethan Chapin, I always like to remind our audience, Ethan Chapin was a triplet. So he's got a sister and a brother. And if you know anything about triplets or twins, it's almost like cutting off one of their arms, that their brother, who they shared the womb with for 9 months, is no longer with them. It is beyond the pain of anyone, from what I've heard, twins and triplets. And Melanie, I know you're a mother, and I could see the pain in your face as I talk about this. Would you want to weigh in on that?
I have twins, so yeah, I totally agree with you. Stephen Smith was also a twin, which is interesting. I think all loss is horrible. All loss is horrible. Whether or not there's going to be a trial, listen, I did a little digging into Idaho state law today, and the defendant is entitled to have his preliminary hearing within 14 days, unless he waives it. So he waived it, and he actually asked for this preliminary hearing to be held in June. So they're doing discovery right now. Look, we don't know what they have. If they've got mountains of DNA, and they've got mountains of his blood, and they've got fingerprints, and just a ton of evidence against him, he may take a plea to avoid the death penalty. There may not be a trial in this case. So maybe we could just hold off on this demolition until at least June and see what we're dealing with. But because of the gag order, we're not going to know about the evidence until then.
Melanie, 100%. And that is one of the advantages of having the death penalty on the books, even if you rarely go for it, because we all know someone can be convicted and receive the death penalty by the judge after they're convicted by a jury, and it could take 20 or 25 years to actually enact the penalty because of lawyers.
Appeals and appeals and appeals.
Endless appeals that cost millions of dollars. So it's almost better off that a person like this gets life in prison. But as a bargaining chip, yes, if we find you guilty after trial, you're getting the death penalty. We're going to go for the death penalty and we're going to push for it. Mike, your thoughts?
Yeah, Billy, looking from New York's point of view, you remember in the 90s with the death penalty being declared unconstitutional after they had reenacted it, and Pataki signed the bill, and it was declared unconstitutional. It's really nothing, I think, except leverage, and it's great leverage. And I think that's what its value is in this case. I'm not a tremendous death penalty advocate, but I think it does have its usefulness, and this is the kind of case where it would be perfect. Just tell them, look, we will go for the death penalty. This is going to be a capital case, and that's it. You're going to have one roll of the dice. At least, whatever may happen, your attorney can save your life, and I think that's probably the best that she can do, and I think that's probably what she's planning to do. She knows the deal. She's done this before. She knows better than anybody.
100%. And even I believe that the Moscow, Idaho prosecutor, he's an experienced prosecutor, but he's not an experienced murder case prosecutor. I think the last murder in Moscow, Idaho was 7 years ago. So I don't know, during his tenure, I think he's probably been around for perhaps close to 30 years or maybe more. And I don't know how many murders he's tried or his office has tried in his tenure. So I would believe that he will get some help from the state attorney general's office to prosecute this case. They got a lot of help in investigating this case. Therefore, I believe he'll probably get some help in prosecuting this. Melanie, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't know his background. I don't know, what his trial record is, but trying a murder case is unlike any other case. And it's a very, very difficult, thing to do if you've never done it before. Will he get help? Likely. And I hope he'll ask for it if he thinks he needs it.
Absolutely. Average PC gamer, it's a shame when we coach the threat of the death penalty to coerce a plea. Let the truth be revealed at trial. You call it coercement. There's all kinds of let's make a deal in the criminal justice field, whether it's plea bargaining, which is as common as judges and lawyers, or using the death penalty to get someone to take a plea rather than to put the system to trial. I don't think you using the word threat of death penalty to coerce. I don't coerce. I think coerce is the correct word for that. Mike?
Yeah, Billy, it's 90%, statistically about 90% of all criminal cases, especially felonies, end in plea bargains because it's a quid pro quo. The prosecutor gives up what the maximum penalty, and the defendant is going to is assured that they're going to get, in most cases they're going to see the light of day much sooner rather than later. So they don't want to roll the dice, because if you roll the dice and you lose a trial, the judge is much more likely to give you closer to the maximum penalty allowed or the maximum penalty allowed. But if you're willing to, plea to a lower charge or something like that, or something else is taken off the table, sweeten the deal. That's how the criminal justice system works. As much as we'd like, we can't give every single defendant a criminal trial. We'd have to build, 8 or 9 times as many courthouses as we have now. It would really not work in our system. And so in this kind of case, with the amount of evidence that the prosecution probably has, it's not a question of is he guilty or not. Really, it's really a question of can we prove it in a court of law beyond reasonable doubt to a jury of 12, and hopefully not have a defense attorney be successful in demonstrating some semblance of doubt there at all. But it's absolutely vital that we have this plea bargaining and that little bit of play between prosecution and defense.
Well, there's the old expression that if the criminal justice system didn't have plea bargaining, it would collapse under its own weight. And that's a really good way of putting it, I think. It just could not do all those trials. It could not have enough lawyers, enough judges, enough courtrooms, enough jails, enough prisons to be able to do this. And plea bargaining serves a purpose. And I think it's gone sort of off the rails by having bail reform to what becoming, bailing people that should never get bail. And that's being seen every day on the streets of New York City. People getting bailed and coming back out and either being caught with a gun or shooting someone shortly after they were bailed. And it's happens way too frequently. So, yeah, we can criticize the criminal justice system. However, this system works better than any system perhaps in the world. I also want to get back to the whole thing with knocking the house down from the point of view of the university. And again, the university is Moscow, Idaho. The town of Moscow, Idaho depends on the university. The university depends on the town to secure all the people they need to be employed, and vice versa. So in that way, is it not a little bit political that they're looking to knock this house down as quickly as possible to sort of get this eyesore out of the community and to put this behind them and not, they're blaming people from social media and from whatever, taking pictures of the house, people walking by, blah, 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 blah. But I mean, we've stated our opinions. I think it's very important to keep it up until after this trial. And I mean, we could say that ad nauseum, but there are very good reasons for it. Melanie, your thoughts?
I think I would not use the word political. I would say this is a business decision for them. It's a business decision. They need students to come in and pay tuition and help the town thrive. And that house being there is it's an eyesore. It's a very tragic reminder of the horrible things that went on there. And so I think for them, it's a business decision. They need to get rid of it.
No, I think you're 100% right, but it would seem that justice should thwart business in this instance.
I agree with you. And I think the families agree too. The families wrote a letter to the university saying, please don't tear the house down.
I'm going to play a little bit of, right. I'm going to play a little bit of Banfield after that, but Mike, your same thoughts on that.
Yeah, Melanie's right. I hate to say it, but I think in some ways this is all about the money, because they need to have those students show up there. And every time a student shows up and rents a place, rents a room, that's extra money for the college. Every time they rent an apartment in a house nearby, near the college, that's more money for the community. They're eating at restaurants. They're doing all kinds of things, buying things, and they, if they lose 500 students because of the tragedy, that's 500 students that they're not spending money on all kinds of things, restaurants, bars, gift shops, you name it. They need to get this behind them as fast as possible. We understand that, and our heart goes out to everybody because nobody wants to be reminded of it. And have in a small town like that, you have people coming by, taking pictures and things like that. I'm sure that's distressing. Absolutely, nobody thinks it isn't, but you owe it to the prosecution and you owe it to the defense. It has to stay up until the case is closed, and that's just the way it is. I don't see that anything's going to change.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of sad in a way that it is, a business decision. It really is. I find it to be, you have to wait. You really do have to wait to see if this case is going to go to trial. And you have to wait to see because the jury may want to go into this house. Let me see if Banfield's ready now.
King Road was going to be demolished, right? And they made those concerns very evident to the university. One of the lawyers, now being retained by family members, actually communicated with the university. How do we know that? Because now a source connected to the university has given us the response, how the university responded to the family members through their lawyer, through their attorney. And what they wanted is not maybe necessarily what they're going to get. Not all the family members are on the same page, but the bulk of them, most of them are. They want preservation of evidence. They want the jury to be able to go on a go-see to this house if they so desire. one of the family members saw what happened in the Murdaugh case, followed the Murdaugh case, saw the jury go see, and then more importantly, saw the conviction and thought, well, what bodes well down in South Carolina might bode well here in Idaho. Now the university has officially responded. And you might remember that the university just on March 24th sent all the family members a very kind letter with condolences and respect, letting them know the plan for the house.
You know, that's all well and good. The kind letter, the kisses, the flowers doesn't mean anything. We want justice here. And if you can't hold off, again, in my opinion, of tearing this house down until after this trial, what if there's one juror, like we know the prosecution, again, we repeat this ad nauseum, the prosecution has to prove this case beyond a reasonable doubt. And we all know that, being in the criminal justice field, and Melanie and Mike, you two both being attorneys. And the defense has to create doubt. Isn't there more of a chance that the defense what if they even said, hey, we didn't agree for you to knock this house down? You know, we would have liked for the jurors to walk through it because we could have convinced, they could use, after the fact, they could say whatever they want to say. I don't know if they are going to have to both sign off on this. Oh, yes, we agree the house should be knocked down. I don't know if they will do that. What do you think, Melanie?
I don't think that they're going to stipulate to the house being knocked down. I think first of all, there's a court order in place, so nothing can happen. If the court order now says, you can release the crime scene, then someone can make an application to prevent that. So it would be up to them to go in and argue, no, you can't knock the house down. The university, who is now the owner of this property, it was off-campus housing when this happened. It was owned by a private landlord. That landlord, that homeowner, donated the house to the university, presumably for some sort of tax benefit or tax credit. And also, he probably didn't want anything to do with that house. He knew he could never rent it again, right? The university is going to have costs associated with keeping this house. They're going to have to pay property taxes. They're going to have to pay liability insurance. They're going to have to pay for security. Because like you said, all these looky-loos are coming by to take Instagram pictures in front of the house. So it's a huge expense for them.
I had asked you guys earlier, and I thought you would both have the answer to this, and neither one of you did. And I lost my confidence in jurisprudence. I'm just kidding. But I asked you guys, and maybe someone in the chat knows this that may be an accountant. What will the owner of this building receive in the way of a tax deduction by donating this house to the university for the purpose of knocking it down? And let's also realize that this owner of this building probably could have never, ever rented this house again because of what occurred inside it. So I don't know why I'm trying to ask you guys this, because you told me you didn't know the answer, but I'm gonna lay it in your lap, Mike.
The university got this thing handed to them, and now they want to try to control its destiny. What do we do with it now? The towers. And Melanie's right. Look at all the costs that are going to be associated with this thing, even if you just have it for a year. There's nothing they could do with it. They can't, because it's not attached to the campus. It's not like they could tear it down and build like maybe a little auditorium there, or just something that would fit on that property. There's nothing they can do with it. It's not attached to the property. They don't want it. There's nothing good that can come from it, from them having it. And then I'm actually probably pretty sure the university knows, as much as they'd like to see it knocked down, it's not going to be knocked down. They're not going to make an argument probably in front of the judge if there is a motion to vacate the judge's order. They're not going to be there supporting any kind of motion to knock the thing down. I really don't think so. I think they really know that it would be fruitless. It's not going to go anywhere. It's a real. They got this. All I can say is they got handed this big pile of stuff. That's the best word I could use to describe it. And I don't know that they even can think about what they could possibly do with it. They're stuck with it because they accepted it. maybe they shouldn't have done it in the first place, but they're stuck with it. They're going to have to live with that decision. Hopefully, like Melanie said, we'll get a better understanding of what the deadline is come June, perhaps, when we get to hear more about what's going on in the case. But they took responsibility for it, and now they got to pay the price.
You know, Mike, besides all your other education you have, you should have knocked out an accounting degree with this, and you could have answered this question too.
I can't
You know,
add. I
an
like to read,
LLM
but I
maybe,
can't
Ted?
add.
Is there anyone in the chat who knows the answer to this question? Any tax experts?
So
Maybe?
then people are saying it's a tax deduction. We know that.
Right, but
we
at
don't-
charitable contributions, you're limited to a federal deduction of $5,000, I think, as an individual for your charitable contributions, right? And the money that you donate to church and other charities. Can he deduct the full market value of this home on his taxes? Does he own it as an individual, as a corporation? You know, there's a lot of factors involved.
Someone
And that's
is
a question
saying
for an accountant, not a lawyer.
right.
So
It's a gift write-off, but no one knows the specifics.
the
So
value, right?
we'll have to bring an accountant on and get the right answer for this. Folks, this is Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. If you're not subscribed to us, go on our YouTube, hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, and ring that bell. If you want to support our channel, we have a Patreon with 3 different levels, and we also have a YouTube channel membership with, count them, 5 different levels. And you see the folks in the green font, they're part of our YouTube family members, and we really appreciate them. So yeah, this is a complicated topic, and there's lots of reasons, of course, that we could see, and we'll go into more in depth later on, but as to why the house should stay until after the trial. It's a big, and someone asked, knocking it down, could that be considered tampering with evidence? No, because the prosecution would agree to it, that whatever they do with this house, or the judge in this case, if it goes to the judge, if they can't get the prosecution or the defense objects to knocking down this house, then it will go to the judge, who will be the arbiter, and the judge will have the final decision. I think the judge would have to rule, no, hold off on knocking it down. That's just my gut feeling. What do you guys think?
I think a judge is going to weigh whether it's more probative, more prejudicial, who benefits, who would be poorly aggrieved by it. I mean, there's a weighing of factors that has to go on there. Everyone would make their arguments, and the judge would have to weigh it and decide accordingly.
Mike?
Yeah, if I'm the prosecutor, I want the jurors to see that. I want them to go in there. I want them to see what a mess the place is. I want them to see the blood. I want them to see the blood of 4 young people. They were slaughtered in their sleep. I'd want that. I would fight tooth and nail to keep that if the judge wanted to. If the judge actually even issued an order to allow it to be torn down, I'd want to appeal that order before we went any farther. I'd do whatever I can. I'd be aggressive as I can as a prosecutor. I don't think there'd be any way that having it available for the jury would help the defense. I think it would only help the prosecution, and I would definitely want that standing. And I think the judge is gonna do that. Just allow it to stay and tell the university, I'm sorry, but Mr. Kohberger and the prosecution, the state and the defense have the right to have that crime scene available in person, not just pictures.
Let's
100%.
remember also that in Murdoch, it was the defense that argued that the jury should go see the crime scene.
Right.
And they went to Moselle. That case was also different because Murdoch still owned the property at that time.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't owned by a third party.
Right.
But it did not help the defense. As a defense attorney, I might argue that I don't want the jury going into this house on King Road, because whether my client did it or not, they're going to be so overcome with emotion and horror and the smells and that they may find him guilty just because of those feelings that they feel in the house, even if the evidence isn't there.
Yeah, Melanie, I could see a defense attorney objecting to the jury going to the house, but this is the crime scene. Why would a judge deny the jury if they requested it, and if the prosecution requested it? Why would a judge deny them the walk through the crime scene. Mike, I see your brain is
Yeah.
moving, and go ahead.
No, it's possible. I mean, it is possible because any sort of evidence that the prosecutor is trying to bring in to the to incriminate the defendant is prejudicial, and bringing someone to a crime scene is the jury to a crime scene for a walkthrough would be prejudicial against the defendant. And all evidence that's inculpatory is prejudicial to the defense, but the judge always has to make a determination where to cut it off. Is there any sort of evidence that may be overly prejudicial? And I think Melanie's right. It is possible that if the judge says, "Look, this place is a house of horrors. It smells horrific. It is disgusting," and I think it would be overly prejudicial to Mr. Kohberger because there's 400 other pictures we're going to show. We're going to show bloody clothing in the classroom. I mean, in the courtroom, things like that. We'll go with that, and we'll hold off on the crime scene because that might actually inflame, overly prejudice the jury and inflame the passions against Mr. Kohberger. I think Molly's got a good point. It's possible. It is possible that a judge may rule that way.
And remember,
Mike,
also, this rarely happens. I mean, we've seen a lot of cases recently where it happens, but it rarely happens that the jury goes to a crime scene. Am I right? I mean, by the time a case gets to trial, so much time has passed that,
Yes.
the condition of the property is not going to be the same as it was during the crime scene. It could have been renovated. It could have been completely different under the control of someone else. So when is this case going to go to trial? We don't know. It could be another year and a half.
Mike, you used the word inculpatory, and that word means evidence that tends to show the guilt of the defendant, whereas exculpatory is evidence that tends to clear the defendant.
Right.
I just like to once in a while go put my professor hat on and see if I remember these big lawyer words that you guys use. And I like that. I like knowing because sometimes you could say those words and many people in our chat may not know what it means, but say, "Oh, it sounds good," and look, not that I have the greatest vocabulary on earth either, but there's words that sometimes people don't know the meaning of, and once you find it out, inculpatory and exculpatory is it's interesting. Anyway, I just thought I'd point it out to my two learned guests tonight. But the other thing is, like, when the evidence is being put together, also, don't forget there's evidence outside the house, and for example, cameras that caught the white Hyundai circling the house, pulling in behind the house. Wouldn't maybe a prosecutor want to show the jury that's the camera that caught the car driving and pulling up into this spot here? That, to me, that would be gold because you're connecting the dots, right? So besides walking into the actual house, there's other evidence outside and surrounding this house that's very, very important. And again, if they knock the house down, no one's going to say, "Oh, take us for a ride to where the house used to be so we could see the camera that caught the house in the room and the scream and all this other stuff." They wouldn't ask that. Melanie.
When is it going to be? Are the cameras still going to be there? Is there going to be any value in that? I mean, they have no control over this other property. I mean, you look at, things like the Amityville Horror House, right? I mean, they changed the address of that house so many times because so many people were coming to look at that house. That house is still there. It just has a different address. So, I don't know whether those cameras would be there, whether the scene is going to be in the same condition. I don't know that the outside evidence is going to be as valuable as what's inside that house. But also remember, it's boarded up right now. So again, we're talking about smell. We're talking about, the condition that it's going to be in. I don't know.
That's what the outside of the house looks like right now. That in itself looks spooky and probably draws a lot of attention. The fact that it's boarded up, and obviously there's a security vehicle on the front lawn, but it's never going to look the same as it looked prior to these murders. There we go. Well, this was also afterwards, but a lot of activity there. Cars always in the driveway. When you see the house empty and boarded up right now, that also speaks volumes to what happened and why the university wants that house knocked down. And if you use the word eyesore, I think it's so appropriate in this case. It's an eyesore for the whole community. Mike Geary.
I mean, if the defense did stipulate along with the prosecution, the judge might, vacate the order to allow the place to prohibit the place from being torn down. I don't think they would both agree, but if they did, then it's possible that it may pave the way for the house to be knocked down. It's possible. But if I'm the prosecutor, I want some, as we talked about earlier, like 3D animation, some sort of recreation or something that the defense would have to stipulate to also, because if they don't, and I doubt they would, I would want to have that in my back pocket as a prosecutor just in case. But as a defense attorney, I would do anything in my power, unless I've got some sort of out from left field, some brilliant strategy that I'm going to turn the tables on the prosecutor by having the jury see the inside of this house. I do not want the jury going anywhere near that house, going and touching that house, going inside, seeing smelling the blood. I don't want them to experience that. They're going to go in there. The house is all boarded up. If they go in there at 2:00 in the afternoon, it's going to be dark inside. It's going to be really scary and eerie. And if I'm a defense attorney, I'll do anything I can to keep the jury out of that house.
So that was back in March. Okay. The plan then was we plan to bring the house down likely by the end of semester. Please let us know if there's anything still inside the house you'd like us to get, barring any biohazards. We want to reunify you with your children's belongings. We're also going to clear many of those belongings out, bring them to a warehouse. You can come and you can pick them up. That's post the original clearing of the house. Originally, items brought out, put into a U-Haul. Those were picked up by some family members. These are what's left in the house. Okay, that was the original letter. Now, this was the tone back then. It's my hope that the university's plan to remove the house helps in your healing. That's not how they felt. Many of the family members said no and sent an official request to the university saying, please keep it standing. So tonight I want to read you the entire text of what the university responded with, how they sent out a communique to the lawyer representing some of the family members. Okay, it says, thank you for your email and request for a meeting with myself and President Green. At this juncture, I intend to keep our communications at the level of correspondence between counsel. That means I won't meet with you. We're just going to speak lawyer to lawyer. I do want to inform you that I have determined to directly request from prosecution and defense counsel a formal indication whether they have any objection to demolition of the property as planned by the university. If there is any objection, I will ask that the issue be brought to the presiding judge for a determination whether the university should be stayed from demolition, and if so, whether the house should be placed back under the jurisdiction and protection of law enforcement. It's signed sincerely, K.N., and that's Kent Nelson, who is the acting general counsel for the University of Idaho. So,
wow, all business now. Cold, very cold. No more caring about the family's feelings and about the community. Now we're going to only correspond counsel to counsel. There's no more meetings. We want to knock that house down. That's what that's saying to me, Mike.
Yeah, they want to knock it down. The university desperately wants to get past this. They want to go move, turn the page on this, and so they've had enough. They want people to come back and think that this place is, a beautiful place, like everybody thought it was, a beautiful, quiet town. Like the video we saw of the young man who said, he didn't even lock his doors before. They want to return some sort of serenity to the town, and they don't really want to deal with the emotion of the family members. It's just going to be, lawyer to lawyer, like me and Melanie talking to each other through papers. That's all, and on the phone. They don't want the families involved. They don't want any sort of extra publicity. They just want to do this as quick as they can.
I can understand. Of course, I think this incident probably has resulted in the University of Idaho losing millions of dollars, and future students, the recruitment of students had to be next to impossible with this going on. Because if you could go to a university that was equal to the University of Idaho that didn't have a quadruple murder on campus, I think you would choose the other university. And I'm a parent as well as a former NYPD sergeant, and I know that that would dissuade me a little bit from sending my son or my daughter to a university that just had a quadruple murder, even after someone was arrested for it. There's that aura there. Wait, a quadruple murder happened at that college. And to get rid of that could take 10, 15, 20, 25 years before people may start to, forgetting about it. Melanie?
Yeah, I think it's a stigma that's going to unfortunately stay with the university for a long time. I don't know what they can do to counteract that. I really don't. As far as the attorney for the university saying that they're only going to communicate with attorneys, it sounds harsh, but it's not uncommon. This happens all the time. They don't want to deal with the families direct. Are they afraid that there may possibly be a civil suit in the future, a wrongful death case? They're probably told by their attorneys, do not speak to the families directly. Maybe that's the reason, but it is something that is very commonly done.
Melanie, good point. But
the attorneys,
the wrongful death case would go against the owner of that building.
There could be a lot of defendants in a wrongful death case. Any kind of civil suit, attorneys look for deep pockets. I don't know what any theory of any civil suit would be, but I'm saying that could be one reason why they are told by their attorney, do not meet with the families directly.
Wow. I wasn't even I was thinking that if there was a civil suit, it would be against the owner of 1122 King Road. And it's not on the University of Idaho campus. So what is their liability? Someone in the chat just mentioned it also gives an onerous specter against Washington State University that this mass killer was a PhD student there. Mike, you're shaking your head. Your thoughts?
Yeah. As soon as Melanie started talking about the liability of the university, I started thinking also about Washington State. Thankfully for Washington State, from Washington State's point of view, they were actually in the process of dismissing him, or he was already on probation at the time of the homicides, and then afterwards, within about 2 weeks, I think, they'd met and decided that they were going to actually cut him off and send him home. So they were already in the process of identifying him as a person who was a little bit strange, maybe a little bit discontented, a person that they really couldn't work with, was not going to be a good professor, was not going to be a good teacher, was not going to be a good criminal justice professional. So for them, they were on the ball. So that would be, if anybody ever sued, any of the family members ever sued Washington State University for saying, you were negligent in bringing this person here or retaining them on the campus as long as you had. And if you had taken other corrective action, he would have been gone months before or weeks before the homicides. So yeah, Melanie's right. There's so many different theories of some sort of negligence that you could try to attach to someone, anybody with deep pockets. And the university, whether it's Washington State or Idaho, they got deep pockets.
So probably, these civil suits are probably already in motion, a lot of them, before the criminal trials even started.
They may
Melanie?
be. They may wait for a conviction. Did the university have a duty to protect these students that were living off campus? Were there, prior incidents at the home that they knew or should have known that these kids were in a zone of danger? There's so many different theories that we could have a whole other show about it. I think I would wait to file a civil suit until the conclusion of the criminal case. And that is what is often done.
Absolutely. Nancy H., I'm a U of I grad, and I have lots of family members who are as well. My daughter attended as well, but my son chose to go out of state for college on a baseball scholarship. I'm very happy he didn't go. So that's probably the feelings of a lot of people that chose not to send their children there.
I mean, that's pretty direct, right? No, we're sorry for your loss, our condolences. Now it's just, hey, you've requested apparently a meeting. The university saying we're not going to do a meeting with your counsel, or at least with any family members that we know of. We're just going to communicate this way. And the way the university sees it, their next move now is to go directly to the prosecutors and directly to the defense and ask them if they have problems with a demolition of the house. And if either of those two parties brings up a problem, then the university says they will request that the judge be the arbiter. In all of this, a very unusual way. I don't really know where judges would come in on this. It's clearly there's a concern of the victims' family members that's evident in how they've responded here. So anyway, as we said, the house still stands boarded up. And by my watch, we only have a few more weeks, let's see, like Mayish till the end of semester. I want to bring in Brian Enton.
She doesn't know where a judge would come in? There's
Yeah,
yeah. What do you mean she doesn't know where the judge would come in? I
The
don't even
judge
understand that. I had to rewind that and watch that 5 times. I don't understand where a judge would come in. What are you talking about? There's a judge involved in the case already.
She either misspoke or just she wants to pull that one back, because I don't know. Oh, a judge, that's his job. See the word judge. You're a judge. You judge. You make decisions of whether it's right or wrong. Exactly. It's incredible. Again, so many things with this are so important, because this whole jury potential walkthrough can only happen if they keep the house up. And in my mind, for the prosecution, again, to restate, it's so important for the jury to do a walkthrough if they request to do so. It's so important, and much more important for the prosecution than the defense. Mike.
Yeah, Billy, I always think it's much more important for the prosecution to have that available, just so that the jury gets to walk in the shoes of the investigators and the victims. But as Melanie pointed out, in the Murdaugh case, it was just the opposite. For not sure why, but the defense is at the very end of the trial, like the very last 2 days of the trial, asked for that walkthrough by the jury, and that actually, unfortunately for them, the tactic backfired. And once they went to deliberations, it was already done deal. But yeah, you might get some sort of defense that can be very unique, out of left field, and actually want the walkthrough. But I'm thinking 99% of the time it's the prosecutor that wants it, and and they'll probably get it. But then again, it's up to the judge. Once the judge enters this case, it'll be up to the judge to decide, whether it's overly prejudicial to anybody. But it's going to stand. I don't see anybody tearing that down. They're not going to do like a Hollywood set and like rebuild construct a sound stage so they could tear down one place and have like a recreation somewhere else, other than some sort of stipulation by both the prosecution and the defense that they want it, that they would not object to being torn down, but with some sort of stipulation that there's going to be some sort of animation walkthrough movie or whatever. But I doubt that would ever happen. It's going to stand.
Yeah, I believe so. Melanie, your thoughts?
I'm going to say the defense might want the walkthrough. Maybe their theory, we don't know what their theory is going to be yet. Mm-hmm. Their theory may be, come with me. I'm going to show you. There's no way in hell one person could have done these 4 murders in this span of time by going from here to here to here to here to here. I'm going to time it. It's impossible. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's very possible that the defense would want the walkthrough, depending on what their theory of the case is. And once we see all the evidence, we can sort of piece together probable theories or possible theories, and we could sit here all day and hypothesize about it. But a walkthrough may be very beneficial to the defense in this case.
Absolutely. You know, when we talk about a walkthrough as compared to either animated or hand-drawn photos of the house, you know, a defense attorney or even a prosecutor can use these as these visual aids in a courtroom, as you guys know.
Layouts and the windows where those were laid out, and it matched right on.
Yeah, so if you look at this image, right, it shows different views of the house: the top view, the front view, the rear view, and then it shows 3 floors. So briefly, if you can briefly summarize, what should we know about this house when we're looking about it? Let's start there. What should we know about the house?
Well, it was originally probably a 1-story that they built into a 2-story house, and right above the 2 bedrooms on the bottom, directly above that, there's 1 bedroom directly above another, and then above another bedroom is just the living room area. So there's pretty much dead space from there all the way to the 3rd floor.
Yeah, and I think let's start with the real interesting question that everybody has. It's whoever did this. You would imagine that the 2 surviving victims who are on the ground floor, if you look at it right here, wouldn't they be the first victims, right? You go in, I imagine, you know, a possibility is the killer comes in through the door and you would go strike the first 2 victims on the ground floor, but to have the victims on the 3rd and the 2nd floor, what do you make of that?
Well, we don't know where they entered. We don't know if they entered through the front door or the 2nd-story slider that goes into the kitchen. There, you know, just from law enforcement reports and video, they're spending a lot of time at the sliding glass door. Looks like they're throwing some fingerprint dust on there, maybe some other chemicals on there to see if they can find any kind of evidence of blood or fingerprints. But I didn't really see them spending a whole.
One of the reasons I'm showing this is because this is pretty damn confusing, isn't it? When you look at this, and this is a pretty well hand-drawn rendition, there's others using video and photographs that are a little easier to understand. But, you know, he said this was a 1-story house that had 2 stories added to it. And the theory is that the killer came through the sliding glass door from the rear, which already puts you on the 2nd floor. So that's what makes this so damn confusing. You know, if you see that's the rear patio door, where you see the 2nd floor, it says 2nd floor. Now, we also don't know because the police haven't released this. And we had certain people say, oh, there's no blood trail. We don't know that. None of us know that if there was a blood trail going to the outside because the police had a gag order on that. And luckily, you know, some of the TV stations have said, oh, someone close to the investigation told us this, but they didn't tell them the real important bits of information, like was there a blood trail? Was there blood on the door? Was there fingerprints? Was there bloody fingerprint? We don't know any of that. We may find, we don't, so what I'm really saying is that we don't know all of the evidence that the prosecution has. They could have, if they have blood evidence of Brian Kohberger in that house, or they have blood evidence of one of the victims in his car, he's done. He's finished. I don't care if he gets, you know, the dream team from the O.J. Simpson case. I don't think half of them are still alive, but he's not going to beat this case. Your thoughts, guys?
I mean, all we know so far is what was in the probable cause affidavit that was 18 pages long. You know, it had the cell phone data and the pingings. It had the video of the car. It had the DNA, the touch DNA on the knife sheath. And there was one other section. That's all we know is what's out there. And the viewers probably know more than I do. But there's a lot more that they have not released that we do not know yet. We'll see.
Well, that's for sure, because there's undoubtedly a forensic video of the interior that every homicide, usually the medical legal investigators or the crime scene unit, they take a video of the interior crime scene. And they also use laser technology to pinpoint exactly where the most important evidence is, so that some smart attorney goes, oh, how many feet was that from the southwest wall? Okay, let me see. Oh, the laser said it was 2 feet, 3 inches. You think the attorney's going to argue with the laser. Mike.
Billy, I was thinking, I was looking at the drawing that was really well done and things like that. It is possible, as Melanie, we've all been talking. It is possible they may just go to the building department and maybe they could build a small scale model of the actual house and people could point with a pointer, where they were going, the detectives and their theories. They could possibly do something like that. And if the defense agreed and the prosecution agreed, they could build a scale model of the house because they know they have plans for it. But if I'm the prosecutor, that would be second best for me. I'd want to have the real McCoy in my back pocket. But I'm just thinking, outside the box, trying to figure, could you put a scale model bring a scale model into the courtroom, if that would be a good compromise for everybody concerned.
But, as we said, that there's no substitute for being on the scene and the smells, the feel, all of that stuff. Folks, if you're looking for a great attorney in the New York City metropolitan area, then Joe Murray is your man. Joe Murray is a retired NYPD police officer and a fantastic defense attorney. You can reach Joe Murray on his cell at 718-514-3855. You can email him at joe@jmurray-law.com. His website is jmurray-law.com. Joe Murray is a huge supporter of Police Off the Cuff, and he was once a frequent guest, but this commercial's been so successful of him, he can't push away the clients anyway. So if you need an attorney in the New York City metropolitan area, Joe is your man. So, not to beat this to death, but really in summation, I think they're not going to allow the university to knock this house down before, the hearings start on June 26th. And as we all recall, we were all I think the defendant has a right to waive the speedy trial thing and take what he chose to take, almost 5.5, 6 months of investigative time for his attorney to get discovery and to do the investigation for the defense. That's what he chose. So they won't be going back to court till June 26th, and there's been 5 days allotted for the hearings on June 26th, which is, I believe it's a Monday. So what happens at the end of June in every courtroom in the United States that's looking to go to trial? They put the case off till September. And that's almost a guarantee that the defense or the prosecution or the judge is going to say, look, I'm not working over the summer. So we're going to put this off till September, whatever it is. Melanie, your thoughts?
Oh, it happens a lot. Plus, they're going to need time to prepare for trial. I mean, this is 4 counts of first-degree murder. They're doing discovery now, and they're going to get a lot of the evidence now. But after the preliminary hearing, they're going to need to prep for trial. It's going to take months. But yes, people, judges, lawyers, jurors like to take the summer off. Yes, it's a slower season than it is during the rest of the year.
Absolutely. Mike?
Yeah, remember the hearing is going to be in June, and it's only to determine if probable cause exists. And then after that, because there's going to be live witnesses, the defense is going to be able to get a little bit of an idea about how the prosecution's witnesses come across. You're not going to have it's not going to be a regular trial, but they're going to be doing direct and cross-examination, so they'll be being able to judge a little bit, not all of the witnesses, obviously, but just a few, just to establish probable cause. But they'll get a real feel for where they might want to, change, because right now everything's hypothetical until you put someone on the witness stand and start asking them questions and do cross-examination. You don't really have a feel for who are the strong witnesses, who are the weak witnesses. But once you do that, it gives the defense a little bit of insight into how the trial is going to proceed. And that, if it happens by Christmas, if the trial was put off until Christmas, that would probably be more, really a reasonable time, as Melanie said, even into the new year. But it's going to be a long time, and if that building is standing, it's going to be standing there for a long time.
Well, there's a lot to the expression that the wheels of justice turn very slowly, and that's for sure. Melanie, your final thoughts?
My final thoughts are, I think that there's a compromise. I think there's a way to obscure that house so that it's not an eyesore and a house of horrors for every student in the community. There's a way to obscure it and preserve it. And maybe that's some sort of compromise that everybody can reach to sort of make everyone happy or no one happy. We used to say the best settlement is when nobody walks away happy. So there's an idea.
Well, that's a real bad lawyer expression.
It's true. Everyone has to feel like they're giving something away and they didn't totally win. That's a good
Right.
sign.
If there's no compromise, that's the whole, it's a give and take. But the best negotiators take. They don't give, right? Mike, did I give you your final thoughts? Or
No. Just that everybody's got to, like I keep saying, everybody has to be patient. The wheels of justice do turn slow, as you said. This is going to be a while, and just kind of figure, as Melanie said, there is ways to screen that house, drape it in something, canvas, keep it not to be an eyesore. But there are ways, if everybody gets together outside of the publicity and going on Ashley Banfield and things like that, talking quietly amongst attorneys and the judge and the university behind closed doors. There's always a way to try to settle this, that everyone may not be all happy, but they could walk away with saying, okay, we have a timetable for this, we have a timetable for that, we know what's going to happen here, we know what's going to happen there. And patience is a virtue, and that's what's desperately needed in this case.
yes, Father Mike, it is a it is a virtue, and I want to wish everyone a happy happy Good Friday, a happy Easter, a happy holiday season. I think we're Passover, I believe, is over. All right. Didn't everyone have their seders already? I believe. I could be wrong. My wife is Jewish, but she's not a practicing. And when we're not where her family is, we don't go to any seders. So I used to go every year, but I didn't this year. Anyway, so wish everyone a happy Easter. And folks, I just want to remind everyone that when we talk about this case, what we never want to forget the victims in this case, Ethan Chapin, Zaina Canodal, Madison Mogan, and Kaylee Gonsalves. That's what this case is all about. And the rest of the stuff is not as important as them, their families, and everyone that loved them, that lost four amazing people. Mike, I want to thank you for coming on the show with virtually no notice as usual. And Melanie, same thing. Thank you so much. You're always available. If it's late, if it's past a certain hour, and your chauffeur duties are over, you're always available. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. This is Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories. Have a great night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Good
One episode just ain't enough.